gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone. Folks, the lamp is lit. NCAA basketball is up on November 4th. NBA's been going on for a while. We've got a lot to report, a lot to bring you, and we've got an exciting show for you today, folks. We're really, really excited. As always, please let us start off. We got MVP Pete in here, and we're doing a really good job with this show. So many different aspects that we've added to it, and we've gone in and really tried to pump it up for you. But we want to always open with a deep sense of gratitude to everybody who's watching, everybody who's in the zone right now with us. We love it. Thank you so much, and we will keep on bringing you the best we can bring you. So we're going to jump off in our number one segment is Pete's Corner, and we're going to open up with a couple of questions, and we're going to rock and roll if we can.
All right, what is up with LaMelo Ball? Example number one.
Gobert.
Kevin, I showed Reg earlier.
That's the NBA now. That's why they call it an entertainment game. But that's always been his style. He's the youngest of the brothers. That's always been his style. But if we go back and we do look at some of his numbers, he is producing some unbelievable numbers. But right there, honestly, that's the defense. The defense has to stop that. The defense has to do that better. And so I don't know, you're out on a wide open fast break and somebody has the ability to put the ball through their legs like that and throw a pass. You're not playing very good defense. So I don't know what's going on with the NBA right now either. They seem to be really shifting towards the entertainment side. The defense is way down again this year. Last year in the second half of the year, they tightened it up, but there were a number of teams that were offering up 120 points per game in their defensive profile, and that's just not good. That's not good basketball. Good question, Pete.
Now, on to the NCAA. Now, the biggest thing about the NCAA over the past 10 years are the huge television contracts. Do you think eventually that'll be the downfall of the NCAA in popularity with the U.S. population, the U.S. television audience?
That's a very interesting question, and I don't think necessarily – let me take it to you this way. It would have fallen already, in my opinion, if it wasn't for all the money. It would have gone some other way. It would have been different if it wasn't for all the money. So – does the numbers just keep increasing and the increments keep going up so that they can grab their hold a little tighter? Probably. The schools are in a kind of an advantageous position right now to be negotiating, to drive those numbers up because now they're pointing to their NIL bills and they're pointing to all the other stuff that's going on in and around their programs, which are added expenditure when revenues, a lot of those places haven't exactly been anything other than neutral or negative. So I think you're entering into a situation where I think they're going to keep floating it, but it's always about the product. It's always about how good your product is in America, and people are going to watch it if they like it. They've always liked it. I hope they continue to like it, but they have been messing around with it quite a bit, and I hope that doesn't shift and cause some people to lose interest. But as long as they keep floating all of those millions and millions of dollars in, what I've known all along is everybody seems to go along when the money shows up. Everybody will rail against it, and you'll have some people out there saying this isn't the place on a college campus for this type of thing. And then the check arrives, and everybody seems to get very complacent and quiet. So I don't know. I think it's one of those things, it's going to have to you would think they want to have a good product because that'll keep it strong. But they're weakening their product and dumping more and more money into it. It sounds a lot of what's happening on college campuses extrapolated out across the board as well. So I don't think it will stop anytime soon. What always makes things stop in our society and in our culture is when people lose interest. And then the dollars just aren't there. And then the TV people will run away from these NCAA people as fast as they can. They'll run away from these NBA people as fast as they possibly can. So I'm interested to see how it all culminates and how it all finishes. But that's a really good question of what's going on right now. And can anybody see the end game? Can anybody see how this thing all concludes? Does it live on forever in good stead? Or is this so disruptive that it's going to cause things to be upturned and cause things to take a different route.
Well,
I don't know.
because everybody would get a limited college schedule, up through the season, and they play games here and there, and you'd get some marquee games, but everybody looked forward to March Madness because it was special and because it was basketball 24/7 in college. And now it's just going to be just a normal thing because now we're going to be so overloaded with college basketball all season.
So this thing just floats on Aladdin's carpet. And Aladdin's carpet right now is a big old dollar bill. That's what it does. It just floats on Aladdin's carpet right now, and that carpet is made of a dollar bill. So what you're talking about is you have all of these bigger schools with all of this money paying guarantee games to the lower schools. Now the lower schools get some of that money, then they can revamp and run their program and hopefully not operate at a huge deficit, which a lot of these small schools just cannot contain and sustain. That's what's happening here is you're just letting big eat little. And a lot of people, because, I don't like that team and I don't like this team, they really can't see it for what it's worth right now. This is the absolute destruction of schools that don't have football, that aren't in major football conference. Everybody else is going to get left behind. I've said this before, and I've sounded the bell here, but it really, really right now it's like a landslide that comes down the hill. You don't stop it. You just hope you don't get caught underneath it. Another good question, though, Pete.
All right, third question. Now, Division I is starting this week, and Division III is starting like at the end of this week or beginning of next week. You're in your first week of the season. How do you keep your kids focused in practice to keep them consistent so they don't get too high or too low?
That's a really good question. We talked about it a little bit last week when we said, you want to really enter into the end of the season on that high note where you're starting the season with a little bit of a teachable mindset, a coachable mindset where you're looking to learn. You're looking, especially now with all of this upheaval in Division I with the rosters, You're really using this time to coagulate your team, to get them into your perspective, to get them into your game plan right now. And so that's happening all over the place. But what happens with us in Division III is it's a little bit different. We do get a little extra time, but also my roster's, not in an upheaval every single year. My roster doesn't change because somebody else was looking for more money and went to another school because they offered them more money. My roster doesn't change that way. It's one of the things I still enjoy, and I promise all of you, I'm just really hoping to beat it out before they start NILing down in the D3 land. I'm just hoping to get out before it happens.
Do you think that'll ever happen?
It certainly will happen. It certainly will happen, and it'll happen sooner than you think. There's nothing to stop it now.
Is there enough of a demand for that, though?
There's going to be some school that just says we can dominate if we do this, and they're going to want to do it, and then they'll start it, and everybody else will keep up with the Joneses. It's just like when they drop the bags, Pete. Somebody dropped a bag on this kid, and you watched it in those movies, and you saw, and all of a sudden, everybody recruited him. Everybody went hard. Everybody sold their school as hard as they could. But then all of a sudden, he put on a certain cap, and everybody went, wonder how he chose that. That's because the bag landed. That's when the money started to flow. And that's been going on in this game for a really, really long time. Nothing has really changed except the avenue they're driving the money down. And then the truck they're driving it down is now legally registered truck. That's all it is. It's just moving money from one side to the other. And now they've gone, again, in the embarrassment that they should have felt, the NCAA, when a lot of their coaches got caught on wiretaps by the FBI and the Department of Justice. What you should have felt at that moment was shame. And what you should have felt was some shared guilt around the table for letting it get as bad as it did. And then when you come up with this answer, you would have to say that there's no limit to the arrogance and no limit to what they're willing to do to keep this thing rolling. And so you're talking about some desperate people, most likely, who are just trying to cling and hold on to what they got, which is pretty good, But you're also seeing Tony Bennett and Jay Wright and some really good coaches fly out of the game right now because they changed it too rapidly, too quickly, and things are just in way, way too much of an upheaval. So that's kind of where it is right now. I don't pretend to have any kind of information on this show that says I know where it's going. We're just going to tell you where it goes. And right now we've been telling you where it's going. We're telling you what's happening with it. And I guess, at some point, I would never do this because I'm in the business myself. But at some point, some people are going to be advocating for turning off the television. some people will start to advocate for taking this out of your life a little bit, not making it the big focal point that it is. And then when all of the jerseys stop being sold, when all of the things they're going to have to need to buttress this NIL operation, they're going to need the people. They're going to need the people more than they've ever needed them before. And if the people turn and the people walk, they're done. They're absolutely done because there'll be nobody in the stadiums. And I honestly, once in a while, I think it would be good for this country if, and in the sports world as well, if one day we just emptied out a stadium. Nobody showed up. They had a game and they played that game and absolutely nobody showed up. Then you'd send your message. Then you'd send it a loud and clear message that we're not going to put up with this anymore, and we want to be involved in some of this change as well. Nobody gets any say in it anymore. Nobody gets any, in a game they've loved, in a game they've revered, in a game they've supported. Now they just pulled the carpet out from underneath you. People are flying all over the place with their interest in this thing. And now you're going to get some repercussions from that for sure. There's no way to dance without paying the piper in this game. Yep. You're going to do it. It's going to have a cost. You're going to have it. It's going to have a repercussion. It's going to have a consequence. You cannot live in a world where you think you live consequence-free just because they're throwing money all over the place. That's a really, really bad way, and it's the first way that I know to wind up in last place. And you're seeing it all over the place. You're seeing people looking for any type of information they can get their hands on, which is good, solid information. Good, solid people delivering the real deal. And right now you have so much of that that's in flux. So much of that that's up in the air, and really what it has been is it's become a game within the game, and so now you have a game within the game that never, ever stops, never shuts off, never turns off. And so that's exactly, I think, in this new modern age of information and technology, I think that's possibly what they were hoping for as well. With that comes
the hot stove league type thing.
Yeah, with that, it's going to come, and I think this is something that this is maybe where some of the coaches are really going to. It's just going to get hot under the collar for a lot of these coaches. With this is going to come newfound scrutiny, because the money that went under the table, nobody really ever knew about. Nobody knew how much it was. Nobody knew where it came from. It was just money that passed under the table to make the letter of intent go. Now you have all of this different stuff going on, but there's going to be a new level of scrutiny because people are going to start to find out how much money was spent on how much and which individual player. And so now you're looking at these coaches and general managers who are now in a situation where they're going to be evaluated on the results of what they've done. And so if we spend an awful lot of money on somebody who turns out to be not a good product, there's going to be a level of scrutiny on that wasn't there before. If there's going to turn out to be where we have a payroll of X amount of dollars and we're in last place, there's going to be scrutiny on that like there never was before. Does that make the coaching carousel spin faster? Does that make the portal door turn into the revolving door at Macy's? Yeah, most likely.
And how much pressure does that put on the kids?
It puts a good amount of pressure on the young man.
Think about that
right now, because a lot of these young men are now in a situation where they can help their family. And so they want to do well and they want to do good, but they're putting themselves into the situation where the biggest dollar is, which doesn't necessarily denote that's the best place for you to play basketball. You got two different things at play here. You got the right place for you to be a star, for you to have a great career, for you to be an NCAA stud. And then there's the piece of I could move 4 times in 4 years and get a bigger payday each time I move. I'm handing up my legacy. I'm handing up any of that kind of questions about whether I would be the greatest player in school history, whether I would set the most points in school history, have the most rebounds in school history, have the most blocks in school history. Those things now are just going to be tossed up. So the record holders that have those can feel pretty comfortable because it's going to be really hard to break those the way the thing is going right now. And what you're doing is you're having young men who are now trying to do good for their families and make the most money they can. But that, again, it does not denote that you have the best situation. It doesn't mean that at all. Doesn't mean that at all. Pete's corners become hot. Pete's Corner's become hot. People like it. People are enjoying it. And it's good to be able to dialogue on the show a little bit because it gets me thinking and it gets me looking at things in different perspective.
Well, and it gets me thinking, too, because I'm not your traditional basketball fan. I'm looking at it from different angles that most people don't look at it, from. I'm trying to look at it from a business standpoint. I'm trying to look at it from a player standpoint. People just like the product, and they don't really think of what's below the layer type thing.
No doubt. No doubt. Okay. Any shot we can move in to our...
Good timing. He's just coming in now.
Coming in right now at 1:15. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is big time in the zone. All right, folks, we have our special guest. We've been trying to tie this in for a while, and this is a man that has roller skates on. You need roller skates to keep up with him. And so we are really, really proud. And I will say this right off the get. There is no finer St. Bonaventure gentleman that I have ever met in my life than Adrian Wojnarowski. He goes by Woj. That's how everybody knows him. Woj, thank you, and welcome to In the Zone.
Rich, it's great to be here with you. It's a pleasure to join you, and excited to talk some hoops with you.
That's awesome, and thank you. I got my Bonner shirt on today. We're ready to rock and roll. We got the Go Bonners on, and we're going to possibly end up with your general manager position right now, but we want to start at the very, very beginning, as we always do. And we had Chris LaPlaca, a good friend of yours, on the show, and a little bit of research on that. I found out that LaPlaca meant smooth stone. And that's probably a really, really good way to describe Chris. He's a smooth stone. So then I went and looked at Wojnarowski, what it meant, and its Polish background, and what it means to you. But it also came back to me. It said a person communicating well with others, a person who mixes well with others, and that was in your family name. And when I went to look at that, I said, "Oh my God, it's just like LaPlaca. This describes Adrian to the T." All right, so let's start there. Mom and dad, Bristol, Connecticut, all the way to ESPN. We're going to go. All right, so let's start at home first.
Yeah, I grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, just down the street, ironically, from ESPN. My dad worked at a factory in Bristol called New Departure Hyatt. That was the biggest employer in town in Bristol until ESPN came around, and then it eventually closed and left right around the time my dad was pretty close to his retirement. And so, yeah, I grew up in Bristol. I was the first in my family to really go to college and do that. And so, I was proud of that. And it's, just connecting with a gentleman named Dale Tepass, who was part of Bonaventure's Final Four team in 1970, a teammate of Bob Lanier.
Right.
My older sister, Brenda, worked for him at the Hartford Insurance Company. And he introduced me to the school when I was a high school junior and knew I wanted to major in sports journalism, and Bonaventure had a program, and he introduced me to Bonaventure, and it was pretty neat to come full circle. We had a news conference when I returned to Bonaventure, and Dale, he was living in upstate New York now, came back and was there. It was pretty neat to see him. We still communicate and talk, but had it not been for him, I'm not sure I would have ever found Bonaventure. But yeah, I grew up in a blue collar family and worked a lot of jobs, cutting grass at the cemetery with my dad. When he retired, our neighbor was like the groundskeeper there. And so I would do that in the summers, worked as a custodian at a middle school one summer, and department stores and photomats. If anybody knows what a photomat is anymore, right in the middle of the Caldors parking lot. I didn't last long in that, no air conditioner. And, but the first big break I got was at the Hartford Courant through high school and college. Incredible newspaper, staffed everything back then. I had so many great mentors there. And so I really learned the basics, fundamentals of the business. And a gentleman named Bob Clancy, who was one of the editors who I'm still good friends with, just guys who taught me the business. And so when I went to St. Bonaventure, I kind of knew how to write a story and had some fundamentals down, and would come home during my school breaks, and I could always go get hours and bylines at the Courant. And at that age, if you said to me, hey, you can cover, University of Hartford basketball in the winter, which was one of the beats at the Courant, Yankee Conference football in the fall, and then just go do a hodgepodge of college baseball, Big East baseball tournament, or Division III nationals, if Eastern Connecticut is in it, in Salem, West Virginia, I remember that would be a trip every year. Like I would have signed up. I would have signed a 40-year deal to take that job at that time.
Wow.
That's, I would have signed up. And so, but yeah, grew up in Bristol, went to St. Bonaventure, and then worked at my first job was in Waterbury, Connecticut for 4 years. Started covering junior college basketball part of my first year, and then got moved over to the UConn beat. And I was on that UConn beat for 4 years in Waterbury, and that's kind of how I got going, in the business.
That's unbelievable. And I wanted people to hear that story because everybody thinks that you just wind up someday on ESPN, and it's always a journey, and it's always has a foundation to the journey. So I want to jump to the foundation. Jandoli, I consider this to be an infomercial for St. Bonaventure, the most special place on earth. And I just wanted for you, and of course, I wanted to do a little research on this also, and I found out that there's a Hellinger Award that is at St. Bonaventure, which is a very prestigious award that's given out in the journalism area, and it's very, very prestigious. And in my research, I found out that in the Wojnarowski household, Woj doesn't have one, but his wife does. Yes. And so I'm sure every once in a while, when there's a little modesty to be dealt out, the Hellinger Award comes out. Let's talk about Jandoli. Let's talk about Bonas.
Yeah, not only does my wife Amy have a Hellinger Award, which includes Mike Vaccaro, Dan Barry at, I'm not sure. Dan, to me, Dan's our greatest journalism graduate. He's with the New York Times. I'm not sure. He might be like me. He may not have gotten it, but my wife got it. She also won the Ideal Bonaventure Senior. And so I know her and Jim Barron, not in the same year, but so my wife cleaned up on the hardware at Bonaventure. But yeah, just an incredible experience there. My freshman year, I knock on the door of somebody told me the editor of the student paper, the Bonaventure, lived at the end of my hallway. I went and knocked on his door. It was Mike Vaccaro, who became a lifelong friend. Obviously, people know him, New York Post, and some great books. And, my relationship with Mike began back then. Also close with my wife, Amy. And, he's the godfather of our son, Ben. So he's been part of our family, and we've been part of his, I think, for a long time. And just, you look at like the student newspaper at that time, Charlie Cream was, when I was the editor of the BV, he was the swimming. I think his first beat was men's swimming. He's the women's basketball bracketology expert at ESPN. And,
wow.
Jeff D'Alessio was on our student paper. He went on to become the sports editor of the Sporting News, the editor of the Sporting News, and now he's an editor in Champaign, Illinois. And so just around some really talented people and that pushed each other and got better, and obviously great professors. And so it was just an incredible experience for me at Bonaventure, and it was the foundation for everything that came after it.
It truly is a transformational place. As I speak on this show, I often know that we have young people that listen to this show, and we're actually in the lower level of a high school. And so we talk all the time about Bonaventure and this special place, and I love getting the word out about it, because if people ever go there and decide to look around and take a look at the spirit and the greatness of that place, you're going to really see a place that can transform your life. And that's why we got Woj in front of us. All right, Woj.
It's funny you say that, Rich, and you use that term, because in my role now, I'm out recruiting, and I get asked by a lot of people, players, coaches, parents, why did you do this? Why did you leave ESPN and return to St. Bonaventure? And I understand the question. It's a natural question. And that's my answer. And you just said it, Rich. St. Bonaventure transformed my life. And I think for certain people, it can be transformational. And so I want to try to, in out recruiting and helping Coach Schmidt and Coach Neal and Valentine and Lowe and our staff, and finding guys who it can serve that role in their life. There's certain people who feel our place. And, Jim Crowley, our great women's coach, said it to me, and it stays in my head. He said, like, you come on our campus, and if you feel it, you feel it. And if you don't, that's okay. It's not for everybody. it's for serious-minded players, serious-minded people who want to put in the work, who want to be in the gym. Listen, we don't win, out in recruiting, like we're not selling weather. We're probably not selling geography for some, but for guys who love to play and want to get better and want to be in an incredible environment for college basketball and obviously an outstanding school, it fits. And so that's what I try to get back to with a lot of kids is I think this can serve in your life the way it did in mine and serve a role to be transformational. And I feel like I have a sense when you're out recruiting, you have a sense of the kids that our place will resonate with, and it's them, it's the people around them. And when you find them and you have a sense, this is a fit for Bonaventure, you got to recruit the heck out of them and do everything you can to make your case about why we are different on the landscape. And there's really not another Division I school quite like us. When you look at being in the Atlantic 10, there's other schools who are comparable maybe in size and geography, but they're not in the Atlantic 10 conference, and they're not competing against Dayton and VCU and St. Louis and St. Joe's, schools who have bigger profiles, state schools like URI and at least for another year, UMass, that are just very different on the landscape. We're smaller, we're we have to be deft on our feet. But what Coach Schmidt has done in his tenure, this is his 18th season, 4 Atlantic 10 conference championships, 2 regular season, 2 postseason, 10 first team all Atlantic 10 players. Nobody has more than those. And I would argue out of those 10, I'm not sure any of them came in to the league and you were sure they were going to be that. The player development has been elite. And so we're different. And that's, that's something every day that I'm out trying to sell to our potential players, but use that word transformational, Rich, and I think it fits.
It did for me, and we were fortunate to have Coach Schmidt on this show as well last year. This is our 80th show. We're really excited to have you here, Woj. But when we had Coach Schmidt on, he's just such a great guy, and he's just such a really, really good basketball coach. We've been very, very fortunate to have him all these years, but he made a comment, and I kind of wanted to jump in on the end of that comment because there is an end to the comment. He said if Woj had put his name into the portal as a general manager, we would have been talking Duke, North Carolina, Alabama, and all of the great programs that are out there. And this is how I wanted to conclude that. But Woj never would have went to one of those places. Woj is going home. Okay? And that's what I want people to understand. There's no Duke for Woj. There's no North Carolina for Woj. He's going home. He's going to make it work with the people that are here, and that's what Bonaventure is so special. That's what really makes that place truly special. The heart. It's the heart of that place, and it's just so amazing to see you go back there. Let's talk about your time with ESPN and the NBA. Unbelievable. You were the guru, man. You were the best.
Well, I really enjoyed my time at ESPN, almost 8 years. But you said at the beginning, I was not an overnight success story. I was probably 37 years old before anybody really ever heard of me. I had done The Miracle of St. Anthony.
Fabulous, fabulous book.
Bergen record. And that got me some attention beyond sort of maybe just that geographic area of northern New Jersey, New York that I was working in. But, I went to Yahoo, and that started to change the trajectory of my career to do the NBA and then ESPN from there. But you said it, Rich. I wouldn't have done this anywhere else, and I'm not going to do this somewhere else. This is a lot of work. I retired from ESPN, but I certainly didn't retire from putting in very long days. And a lot of it is very much the same. It's relationship building. It's talking with players, talking with coaches, it's talking with agents, talking with NBA teams. And then spending a lot of time on NAL and working those avenues, which are crucial for us. It never ends. And so there's always more people you need to be reaching out to. And so I'd only do this for St. Bonaventure. When I'm done with this, I'd like to go sit on a beach at some point, but I'm not ready to do that now. And I still wanted to work, but I wanted to do something that I just felt was more personally meaningful, and that a place I just really believe in, a program and a coach and a staff I believe in. And so this is a tumultuous time in college sports, and it's a transitional time, and we need to be able to put some things in place that can have staying power for the long term with NIL and infrastructure that I want to get into place that are going to outlast me and outlast Coach Schmidt and outlast the folks who are working there now, that can last, and a structure, because NIL is a huge part of the landscape, and revenue sharing is coming, and that's going to we're going to have to figure out how we fit into that. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time on. But it's fun. It's you're figuring out what roster building looks like is very different, and it's changing every year about where you allocate your resources, where you're recruiting your players from, and all that. So it's a challenge in trying to be efficient and innovative. We're not going to do it exactly like other people in our league who might have more money and more NIL. We have to do it differently. And so what I'm really calling upon for me are, building off relationships I have that can help with NIL, and then also building off of trying to open doors for our coaching staff and recruiting in all parts of the world. It's funny, as we're talking, I'm seeing a text from one of our former players at St. Bonaventure who I wanted to pop in with me at a game in recruiting soon, because I was going to be somewhere on the road, and thought he could be helpful to have in the stands. I want to get his eyes on a player. And so he's just telling me there that great. Well, I'll see him where I see him next week. So, and reaching out to our alumni players, Rich, being able to get our guys further involved, back involved, let them know the strength of our program are the eras with which we connect with. And I want our current players in this age of the portal, we're going to bring back great Bonaventure teams and bring back players from all different eras and all different levels of success at Bona in terms of team success. We want them all back. And I think the more we're bringing back those teams and we're bringing back those players, what I want to show our current players is look at the relationships that you can have with your teammates 25 years from now, 50 years from now, the relationship that the community has with those teams and the love they have for them, and their alumni peers, how much they loved and revered, all these different teams we had. And when we bring these guys back to campus and we have them talk to our players, or we introduce them and celebrate them at halftime of one of our games, I want our current players to look around the locker room and look around the bench and look at their teammates and say, hey, I want that with these guys. And so I hope that's a reason why guys would want to stay and play at St. Bonaventure, not just come there, but stay there, because I really believe at our school, it's not a 4-year decision, or in some cases now a 2-year decision. It can be a 30-year decision, a 50-year decision. And I want to make sure that our players see that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really believe that in this current market, evaluation is going to be really important. And what Mark Schmidt has demonstrated over his 18, 17 plus years at Bonaventure is he can evaluate talent, and he's seeing things that other people aren't seeing. And so in this day where evaluation is really going to matter, I feel really comfortable with this staff. I mean, Coach Schmidt is a legend, in Bonas, and will always remain that way. But now we've brought home Bob Beretta from Lemoyne, yourself jumping on board. I'm a team builder. That's what I've always done in my life. And when you put a team together like this, you're going to have a really good chance at getting it over the line, because there's passion and there's enthusiasm, but there's also love. And it's so much easier to win with love than it is with hate. And so this has just been an incredible, incredible time. Woj, talk to us a little bit about where do you see the future of the NIL?
Well, I think you're going to have to be, and what I'm trying to do is, for us, the future for us is, yes, we've got to be able to provide NIL and money to players. But what I also am trying to use are my relationships in the business community and the sports communities, sports industries, to provide access to them, to industries, and provide access to relationships with people that can help them now and help them through their careers. So yes, money's got to be a part of it, but some of the partnerships that we're going to start to announce here in the near future are also going to be built around, just sort of some creative things and some brands that players really identify with that are excited about. And so I think it's got to be, for us, a combination of that. We may not win. We may not be able to have the biggest NIL package in every instance when we're out recruiting or trying to retain a player, but I think that we need to have provide a scope of access to companies and people that excite players and excite their families and are innovative and different than what other people are doing. If it's just going to be who's giving you the biggest number, we're not going to win that one with really, really good players all the time. But the guys who value more than that, and they see it as part of the picture, player development, the relationships that I have in basketball and at the pro level. And, what I tell our guys is my global network is now your network, and you're going to tap into my network of people. And our players are already doing that. And they've been doing that at Bonaventure. Since I've been in this role. I was in this role at ESPN and Yahoo. So, but when I say it's not going away, it's only going to become bigger, and it's a bigger part of it. And you're going to have revenue sharing, and then you're going to have NIL on top of it. And so it's a great time to be an NCAA athlete. There's no question about that. But I think at Bonaventure, it's sort of continue to drill down on the guys who our environment appeals to, and find those guys. They're all over the world, and who value, I think, a broader scope of opportunity that comes with our place. And there are guys who like the smaller campus and the smaller classroom setting and a more manageable student body size, but yet you could play in the Atlantic 10. You could be in a league like Bonaventure that has had more consecutive double-digit conference win seasons, 10 wins or more, than anyone in our league. We had a run of 8 straight years of that. Nobody else in our league has done that. Coach Schmidt is 11-8 against Power. Now it's Power 4 in the Big East since 2018. So 11 wins, 8 losses.
Best home court arena in the entire country.
Yeah,
Riley Center. Riley Center is unbelievable.
And out of that 11-8 against the Power 4 in Big East, we both know none of those were in the Riley Center. They're all on the road or they're neutral, right? So we win at Syracuse in the Dome. We beat UCLA in the NCAA tournament. We beat in the Charleston tournament a couple of years ago, right in a row, Boise State, Clemson, and then beat Marquette by 20-plus points. And then the NIT, I don't know if anybody's ever run the gauntlet like this in the NIT. At Colorado, where they announced the game on a Sunday, we got to play it on a Tuesday night.
On the
road. No adjustment to the altitude. Win at Colorado, go to Oklahoma, win at Oklahoma, and then go to Virginia, which was a year removed from a national championship, or 2 years removed, and beat Virginia to go to New York. And, we're giant killers. And that's been Coach Schmidt's, that's been our culture. That's been our identity. And so to be able to do that in an environment with 2,000 students, with 11-to-1 student-to-teacher classroom ratio, and as you said, Rich, one of the best home court environments anywhere in the Riley Center. And this, when you go on the road as a Bonnie, Bonnies fill the gym wherever we go. Atlantic 10, out of conference. We're going to pack those gyms. Bonnie fans will find their way to any corner of the country, but especially in the Atlantic 10, which are such strongholds of our alumni. It's just a unique experience to get to play basketball at St. Bonaventure. And so it's fun to go out and try to sell that every day.
I've been educating Pete on Bona territory and how Bona territory is wherever we say it is at that moment. And
right.
The one thing that I wanted also people to realize is when all the money settles And when everything goes, there's a lot of guys that are going to be able to play in the pros and a lot of guys that are going to move on to Europe and have contracts over there. But the majority of those players are not going to move on. And the NIL will stop the day they graduate. That degree will matter very, very much to you at that moment. And that transformational aspect of St. Bonaventure, just look at our alumni. Just look at the people that we've produced from the Enchanted Mountains up there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place with a new president, President Gingerich. Anybody who's looking at colleges right now, get up there and go. Woj, I want to thank you for being with us in the zone today. We've got some other stuff to go to, but you're the absolute best, man. We appreciate you. As always, go Bonas, baby.
Reg, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Good luck this season.
You're the best, Woj. Thank you.
Okay. All right, take care.
Pete, I didn't want to stop it.
I know it was a good
I didn't
interview.
want to stop
Great.
it. It was just rolling, and I didn't want to stop it. We could have done another hour, but I promised him 15, 20 minutes, and I'd get him out. But man, we could have rolled that thing all the way home. All right, Pete, let's run into our in honor of Woj. We're going to call it the Woj Power 15 today. It's our number 2 of the year, and I gave it to Pete early, so we've got the graphic for you. This is one of the baselines of the NBA, folks. The Cleveland Cavaliers. They're 9-0. They've won 9 games in a row, and they are absolutely playing great basketball with a lineup that has some interesting pieces to it, but they're making it work, and they're making it go. Let's see if they can continue. Let's see if they can sustain. But right now, number 1 in our Power 15 are the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I don't think when we started the season there would have been a lot of people who offered that up. We got the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant and the Rising Suns, 7-1. They're playing good basketball. They've also won 6 games in a row. They're very, very hot. OKC Thunder, there they are at 7-1. They're talented. They're young. They've got great draft picks set up for the future. If you're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, they've got a bright future. And right now, they're in our number 3 spot at 7-1. The Golden State Warriors, 7-1. They've really have revamped their roster. They have more depth than they've had in years past, and they still have Steph Curry, and they still have some really good pieces on there. And they had a really good win over the Celtics in Boston last night, where I went out online and I called it Jason Tatum's revenge for the playoffs, and Jason played very well, but the Warriors came out with the victory. So it was an interesting little scenario there. I've got the Boston Celtics at 5, but Pete, they're 7-2. They've dropped 2 games, and right now Horford got back the other night, but they're woefully hurting up front to the point where, and I dropped this name for you a little bit earlier in the couple of shows, was Neemias Queta. He's a really good big man. They're starting to start him now and trying to get some defensive presence around the rim because they just don't have any. They're giving up 135 points to the Pacers. Might have been a signal that they needed somebody inside. The Houston Rockets, I got them in the 6th spot. I'm high on this team because the way it worked with Amaya Udoka in Boston was unfortunate, and he got another chance at Houston. He's doing a great job. He's a good coach. They got a nice young team there, and they're 5-3. I'm hoping for them. They got bounced out of the playoffs last year. Just missing. The Golden State Warriors were the last team in, but I think Houston's going to have it this year. I think that fans out there could give you something to be excited about. 7, the Dallas Mavericks, Luka, Kyrie, and now Clay. They've got a nice little triumvirate working there, and they're doing okay. Denver Nuggets have struggled. They've now won 3 games in a row, but they've been up and down, and they haven't really been able to get into a nice, sustained position where they're winning a lot of games and they're doing stuff. They're 5-3. They're a little enigmatic at this time, getting good numbers and production out of the Joker, but Jamal Murray seems to have disappeared a little bit. Minnesota Timberwolves, 4-3. That trade didn't help the Knicks or the Timberwolves, and both of those teams were much higher in our Power 15 last year than they are right now. And you look at that trade and you shake your head. I'm still shaking my head about that trade. I just didn't get it. Sacramento Kings, 4-3. Domantas Sabonis, the big guy, 2nd in the NBA in rebounding right now. And they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job there in Sacramento. They just don't have a great team. Indiana Pacers are 4-4. They're up and down, though. They beat the Celtics and look great in overtime, and then other games they look like they should win, and they're not able to do it. 4-4 for them is a little disappointing, but again, it's very early. Memphis Grizzlies at 5-4. We're still going to go with Zach Edey as our Rookie of the Year. John Morant is back. They have some nice pieces there. I expect them to grow a little bit as the year goes on, kind of get some chemistry, and I think they'll be okay. Brooklyn Nets in at 13. I had to put them in. They're 4-4, and that's probably more games than they won all last October and November. Los Angeles Lakers 4-4. Big disappointment. Where we were excited, where they started out 3-0, and then they've just had really little success on the road, have dumped some games that I don't think they should have dumped, and right now they're 4-4. We have them in the 14th spot, but they've really started off pretty good, but then they haven't really materialized. And here's another one. The Atlanta Hawks are 4-5. That's a big surprise, but they do have Trae Young back now, and they're talking about possibly having a deal that goes Trae Young and moves him over to the Lakers, because the Lakers really need a point guard bad. And so they're talking a little bit about that. I'm surprised that Atlanta would want to make that deal, but who knows? All right, here's the not hot segment, Pete. All right, Milwaukee Bucks, 1-6 right now. They've lost 6 games in a row. Unbelievable. The Utah Jazz, this is going to be bad all year, folks. I hate to tell you, if you're up in Utah and you have season tickets, you're going to be watching a lot of losing. They're 1-6 right now. Lauri Markkanen has been hurt, and that's a problem. The Philadelphia 76ers are 1-5, losers of 3 in a row. In the Gomer Pyle segment, surprise, 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 the Nets are 4-4. The Pistons are 3-5. That has eclipsed their win total from 23-24 all the way through November already. And the Wizards are 2-4. Now you say 2-4, but 2-4 for the Wizards ain't bad. All right? Now, it's going to come. And it's going to come a lot faster than people think. Somebody is going to get put into the NBA cannon and fired like a Revolutionary War cannon. Boom. It's going to go soon. They're not going to keep waiting. I'm going to give you a list of the people that I think right now they might want to get a U-Haul and leave it right outside their house, because they're probably going to be moving soon. All right?
Get yourself a pod, brother.
No doubt. Come on in the zone with us. Come on in the zone with us. Doc Rivers with the Milwaukee Bucks, and this is why I say this. Adrian Griffin, they owe him $18 million not to coach the team, but he was 30-13 when he was fired. 30-13. Since that time, the magnificent Doc Rivers, I think he might have coached every team in the NBA by now. He's 18-21 last year, starts out 1-6, 19-27 overall, and the team absolutely is in disarray. And people are talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo, Dame Lillard. There's talent on that team, and for some reason it's not working. And when it doesn't do that, they can't get rid of all the players. They usually put the coach in the cannon and light the fuse, baby. All right, I'm going to say Nick Nurse or Daryl Morey, the general manager of the 76ers, coming out publicly saying if your guys weren't going to play back-to-back, keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody, okay? But this announcement that your guys weren't going to play back-to-back, general manager don't look good, and neither does the coach. Nick Nurse just kind of got there a little while ago, but the way that goes in the NBA, there's going to be a problem. Going to be a problem. Will Hardy from the Jazz, it's going to be a rough year there. I don't know if he can sustain it. Chauncey Billups from the Blazers, I don't think he's making the draft calls there, but somebody's got to coach that team better than they are, because they're about ready to finish DFL in the Western Conference. J.J. Redick of the Lakers, I'm going to throw it out there. I doubt they want to do it. But if things blow up between him and LeBron, and I think there's a possibility that those things could happen, I think that you're going to see, it's going to be rough, I would say, if they don't start winning. If they start winning, everything will be rosy. Losing causes dissension. Losing causes problems. Losing causes your chemistry to break down. Once that happens, they're going to be looking at J.J. Redick as the emperor has no clothes on. Mm-hmm. They're going to be looking at him in the locker room for answers, and because he's a first-year neophyte coach, he's not going to have those answers. And if the assistant coach, whoever's on that bench, who's his Laker whisperer, sitting next to him about the plays they're running and all the other stuff they're doing, then they're going to knock him out even by default there, because the players then will know he's not in charge, he's not in control, and they'll have a lack of respect for the head coach. Okay, good luck with that. NBA stat leaders right now scoring: Anthony Davis from the Lakers, although he hurt himself the other night. Didn't look too serious, but Anthony Davis is been known to disappear at times, so you never know. Number 2 in scoring is Giannis from the Bucks. He's having a great year. He's also doing some really good stuff in other areas such as rebounding and assisting. Jason Tatum, number 3. We had him as our MVP to start the year. I kind of think I can still go with that, but I'd like to see him and the Celtics a little more fired up to play the Warriors last night because your guy got bumped out in the Olympics, and the guy who bumped him is the opposing coach. I would have liked to have seen him get a little more fired up for that. Maximum Maxey, Tyrese Maxey, 30.2, and Nikola Jokic, 28.8. Tatum's revenge, Pete. This is what we'll give it to you. They lost the game. 118 to 112. They lose to the Warriors. Tatum had 32 points, 5 of 10 from three-point range, 4 rebounds, 2 assists.
That's a good stat line.
It's a good stat line. And they had a little bit of a lineup shuffle. Horford was back, and as I said, they threw Nehemias Queta in. And I'm high on Nehemias Queta, 14 and 8. 14 points, 8 rebounds. Okay, Pete, we dragged Woj way down the I-17 corridor down there a little bit longer, but I'm going to try and fit in our Power 25 if I can. I got 9 minutes, so we're going to have to move and groove. Now, this is right after the first night, couple of nights. We had 3 top 25 teams, Pete, get bounced out in the NCAA top 25. They all were in there, and they all lost. We'll talk about them right after we get done with this, but there was some upsets there. You had Texas lose to Ohio State. You had Texas A&M lose to UCF, and UCF fans storming the court on the first game. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe want to win a few more, then we can storm the court. And Texas A&M is, not exactly the Celtics. Okay, Connecticut 1-0. They bombed Sacred Heart. 92 to 56. Caravan had 20 points. Leah McNeely had a very good game, 18 points, 10 rebounds. That team's loaded, folks. That team is loaded. You don't know it, but you're gonna learn today. Houston 1-0. We moved Gonzaga up. That's right. After I watched the Baylor game, I had them in 4, but I moved them up to 2. So we go Gonzaga 1-0. They torched Baylor. 101 to 63. I stayed up to watch that game, and boy, was I disappointed. I thought we were going to get a great, great college basketball game to open the season, and Mark Few put on a coaching clinic. His team's very good, and Baylor is what we talk about a lot of times on the show, Pete. They're going to have some chemistry issues.
I heard the Baylor coach apologize to his fans after the game.
He did, and their schedule is really rough. And so I'm interested to see what happens with that team. Will it meld the fire, or will it break them completely apart? We'll have to see. All right, now we go to Houston 1-0. And the reason I threw Gonzaga over that, because they went after Baylor. And Baylor was like 8, 9, 10 in everybody's poll, and they smoked them. So I had to move them up. Houston beat Jackson State 97 to 40. Jackson State is 326 on the power rankings, folks. That's a cupcake. All right, Auburn 1-0. They scorched Vermont. Vermont opened the season. I hope they didn't stay in Alabama all this time, but it looks like they might have. They opened up against Alabama Birmingham and had a great win. Then I think they stayed down there to collect some more money, went to Auburn and got absolutely scorched by Auburn. It was bad. All right, so we got Kansas in the number 1 spot. They beat Howard 87-57. The big guy was back. Iowa State in the 6th spot. And we're really, really excited about this Iowa State team. Tameen Lipsey, they've got guards, they got players, they've got a good foreign player, Momcilovic. They're going to be okay. 83 to 44, they beat Mississippi Valley State. And Mississippi Valley State, if you remember them from last year, Pete, they were one of the young and winless. They went all the way through the season almost and did not win a game. They might have went the whole season.
Cannolis for everybody.
Exactly. This is a 363 cannoli, Pete. This is the biggest, the sweetest cannoli you could possibly get. That's a 363. There's only 300. I don't know what they're doing with Mercyhurst right now. If they're counting them as one of the Division I teams, that might have bumped it up to 363 or 364. But that's it. There's no more teams after that. So if you're in the 363 range, you took the biggest cupcake you could find. Alabama 1-0 took on UNC Asheville. 110 to 54, and Asheville is 155 rated. Pretty good program. Not bad. All right, Duke, everybody was excited about this one. Number 8, they came out, and they did not disappoint. They smoked Maine. No big deal, but it was 96-62, and they looked good doing it. Maine is obviously a number 224 in the power rating, so not a great program. But what you did see there, and what you're hoping to see all year long, is you got some pretty good freshmen. You got Cooper Flagg, possibly the number 1 draft pick. You have Con Newpel, who's playing great basketball right now. People are going to hear that name all year long. He's a freshman, and he can shoot the lights out, folks. He's shooting from downtown Durham. And their big man is terrific as well. Kamer Malak. Many people think that he's going to have a really good chance to be an NBA first-round pick. Tennessee, number 9, Rick Barnes. The beat goes on. They beat Gardner-Webb 80-64. Gardner-Webb ain't bad. They're 227, but they're actually a pretty good program. Arizona, 1-0, and they beat the Golden Griffins of Canisius. I think that's who Bonaventure has up next. And 93-64, Canisius is a 3-1-3 in their power rating, 313. North Carolina, we have them in at 11. Really disappointed in their opening game. I watched the game. They played Elon. Elon was in the game till the very, very end of that game. They lost 90-76, but that game was a very, very close game, and North Carolina's got some issues. They have some mercurial young freshmen, but you go up against experienced teams, and they're going to find a way to hurt you. You got Purdue, number 12. They beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi, who's 161. I was a little surprised at that. 90-73, they couldn't shake them really. Creighton at 13-1-0, they beat Rio Grande Valley. Listen to these cupcakes. Listen to this stuff. 209, 99-86, they beat them. That game's a little closer than Coach McDermott would have hoped, I thought. Kentucky, off to a good start. They beat Wright State 103-62. This is a team that is going to be surprising to me because they have this kid, young man, Will Riley, who lit it up the other night for 31 as a freshman. Illinois, 1-0. They beat Eastern Illinois, who comes in at 308, but they beat them 112-67. Eastern Illinois took probably a nice little payday on that game. Marquette 1-0. They beat my wife's alma mater, Stony Brook, who comes in at 284. I was surprised to see Stony Brook at 284. They should be a little higher than that with all the talent around New York City. But that was 102-62. Marquette looks pretty good, folks. UCLA 1-0. They went up against Rider 85-50. 255. West Coast cannoli. Cincinnati 1-0. I like this team. Arkansas Pine Bluff is 362. It don't get much lower than that, but they pounded them 109-54. Ohio State. I got to move these guys up a little bit, Pete. I did this so late in the thing, and when those games came down, everything was shuffling. I got to move them up because they played Texas. Texas was top 25, and they beat them 80-72. Texas was number 14 in the country, so I got to move them up a little bit. That's a good win for Coach Diebler in his first year. He was the gentleman who took over in the middle of the year last year, did so well with the team that they gave him the job, kept it pumped out, and right now Ohio State seems poised and ready to have a good year. Texas Tech, 1-0. They beat Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman, 274, 94-61. Michigan State, I was a little surprised at this. Their lineup, a little bit out there, but 81-57 over Monmouth. Monmouth also extended King Rice's contract into like 27, 28, but Monmouth right now is at 230. They've got to get better than that. Indiana, I'm going to keep them in, 22. Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, 321. Woodson took them to the woodshed, 80-61. Pretty good balanced attack. They have a great backcourt. They got one of the best centers in the country and one of the best sophomores in the country, Mackenzie Mabako, Umar Ballo. They have a good team, folks. Arkansas, 1-0. They beat Lipscomb. 23, I want to see more out of them, but I think that they could rise quickly, and I think Ohio State could rise quickly. They were 1-0. They beat Lipscomb 76-60. Lipscomb, they call them the Lippies. They were on the 123 on the power rating. I was surprised to see them that high. I'm going to go ahead and bite because I love the East Coast basketball. St. John's, we're going to put them in. First time under the Rick Pitino era, I believe we've had them in our Power 25, Super 25. 1-0, they dismantled Fordham. Fordham came across the Triborough Bridge, and they caught a beatdown. 92-60. And Fordham is 146 in the power rating. Atlantic
that
10
is a
team.
beatdown then, yeah.
They're predicted to be at the bottom of the Atlantic 10. For the life of me, I do not know why that Fordham program cannot get going, but they cannot. All right, Rutgers 1-0. They beat Wagner 75-52 without their star freshman Ace Bailey. But Wagner is at 253. But Wagner is tough. Wagner could give a good game, and that's a good game for Rutgers. It's a local, and their long-time AD, Walt Hamline, is an absolutely great guy out at Wagner. Been there many, many years. Also coached football there for many, many years, and has done a tremendous job with the Seahawks program, and is just an all-around great guy too. All right, so here's your top 25 dump, Pete, and that's how we're going to close out. All right, Baylor lost to Gonzaga. One of those teams had to get dumped, and we took Baylor out because they looked absolutely terrible in that process. And now you're going to see, folks, when a certain team says, oh, my God, we let him go, and he went to another team, and everybody's going, why would he go from there to there? It's because the other team probably let him go and didn't want him. And now you're seeing some of these players land other places, and it's not going well. Texas A&M lost to UCF. Johnny Dawkins, congratulations. But again, court storming after the first game, I don't know about that. Texas lost to Ohio State. Unbelievable. I'm going to give you this one, Pete, and this is the last we're going to close with. This is going to be a problem, okay? Down at Villanova, Kyle Neptune, the coach down there, they jumped on it. They wanted to bring him in, and all of a sudden, they're really losing to teams they should never lose to. They lose to Columbia at home, 90-80 last night. Whew. Could be a swan song for Neptune. Pete, that was unbelievable with Woj. Love my Bonaventure people. We'll be back in the zone next week, folks, and we'll have some more information for you. New top 25, new power 15. We're going to keep it rolling, folks, because we're in the zone.